Up next, we're going to find out what it takes to be rich by 30. Hello, I'm Shannon Skinner, and this is Extraordinary Women TV. My next guest is Lesley Scorgie. She is a financial consultant. She is also the author of the best-selling book, Rich by 30 and also Rich by 40. She, at the age of 17, appeared on Oprah. Let's find out what she has to say. But before you meet her, we're going to take a quick break, and that means it's my regular Good to Know Minute. When I ask my guests for their top success tip, you'll hear Lesley's. Hello, Lesley Scorgie. Nice to have you here today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, you live in Calgary.
Yes.
You're from Toronto originally, but you're here this week. What brings you back to Toronto?
Well, I actually am graduating from my MBA at Queen's this week, so a very exciting week.
Congratulations!
Thank you. And I am back in Toronto quite often, actually, with the work that I do, the consulting work that I do. I have a regular column with Metro, and I'm on a volunteer board, the YWCA of Canada, as their treasurer.
Now, you're a financial consultant. What's the difference between a financial consultant and a financial planner or financial advisor?
So in my world, I guess the space that I am operating in is very independent. I'm not aligned with any institution per se, nor am I aligned with any product. So an advisor would be able to tell you, okay, you need to invest another $10,000 in your RRSP, and here's the stock that I want you to buy. I don't do that. In my world, what I focus on is giving people tips and basic financial understanding to help them build their net worth. And as a consultant, rather than an advisor, I can bring in a very objective opinion and promote healthy financial habits through columns and writing, various media outlets, etc.
Now, at the age of 17, you appeared on Oprah.
Yes.
The talk show of talk shows. Now, how did you get there? And how did that change your life?
I want to take you back to when I was 10 years old,
okay.
And I bought my first Canada savings bond with $100 that I'd received for my birthday. My mom sat me down and explained to me that if I invested that $100 in 7 years from now, it would be worth $135. And that extra $35 worth of interest was compound interest. And she took that opportunity to tell me what that actually meant, and that if I saved my money early on, I would get more of that free compounded interest and reinvested returns. So that's what I did. Every time I got $100 or $2 or even $50, I would go and buy various investments. And before I knew it, I had quite a little nest egg on the go. And when I was 17 years old, I was in my high school and had an opportunity to help develop a small program on basic financial literacy. There was a need identified in the school to, I guess, promote healthy saving habits and explain to the students what debt was and why it's important to avoid it. And that mini program caught the attention of the producers of the Oprah Winfrey Show in my final year of high school at 17 years old.
Wow.
I received a phone call from them after school one day, and they had asked if I wanted to come down to Chicago and meet Oprah Winfrey and discuss with her the importance and the value of young people saving their money early on. And I went ahead, met Oprah Winfrey, was on the show Ordinary People, Extraordinary Wealth, and was able to promote healthy saving habits in youth. When I got back to Canada, that was a big deal. Young Canadian, Calgarian, from, I guess, yeah, from not a silver spoon background, promoting financial literacy. And so it caught a lot of media attention, and it really changed the trajectory of my career. At 17 years old, I was offered television contracts and book offers and opportunities to write in various magazines, and it was life-changing. But instead of executing on any one of those options, I actually went to university and got my Bachelor of Commerce degree from the University of Alberta. And it was during that time that I began formulating the ideas for my very first book, Rich by 30. And Rich by 30 was born out of the fact that when I was young, there weren't too many books.
Before 30?
Before 30, when I was very young. There weren't many books on the market that were available to help a young person get started.
Well, there was The Wealthy Barber, which is
yeah,
sort of
the Wealthy
but
Barber.
Not necessarily for young people.
And I wanted to address that market niche. And while I was at university learning about market niches, learning about finance and marketing, I put the business plan together for Rich by 30. And it was published shortly after I graduated when I was 23 years old. And after 6 weeks on the market, it was a bestseller, which just goes to show the appetite and the need for basic financial literacy for the getting started crowd, is what I call them, but basically 15 years old to 30 years old. And Rich by 30 offers all the basic tools that a young person could possibly need to get them started on a healthy financial path. And after Rich by 30 came out, there was a lot of activity, a lot of flurry and excitement surrounding the book because it was giving even parents and teachers opportunities to open up the dialogue, to have money conversations in the home, in the classroom, and also personally. So after Rich by 30 came out, Rich by 40 followed, and that was an identification of another need. I began my speaking career after Rich by 30 came out, and it was very evident and I was very quick to learn that couples struggle with money. And that was
the number one cause of separations and divorces, is it not?
It
Money
sure
issues
is.
between couples? Yeah.
And it was not a single presentation went by when I didn't have a couple come up to me afterward ready to wring each other's necks and saying, you know, he spends this, she spends that, we can't get our savings back on track, and we're angry at each other, can you help? And Rich by 40 was born out of helping that market in particular, those that already had some basic financial acumen, start to learn to have money conversations, understand their relationship money and how money impacts their relationships.
Now, for people who are under the age of 30, I mean, it sort of strikes me that we're talking about young students. Often it's young adults who've maybe they're going into their first or their second career. Yeah. Perhaps even traveling the world. I mean, it doesn't strike me, or am I wrong, that maybe saving money at this stage is where they're at. They might be at spending it.
Yeah, it's a tough sell.
Yeah.
It's a very tough sell. But the number one reason why you would want to get started early is because of that power of compounded interest and reinvested returns.
Which makes complete sense.
And that's really the case for saving early. And I understand that the young crowd, the getting started crowd, the under 30 crowd, however you want to categorize them, that they have so many priorities for their money. Student loans, traveling, first houses, forming households, and they have a number of priorities pulling their budget and ripping it in half in some cases. But it's really just important to make saving a priority, and even if it's $5 a week, 5 is better than nothing. Ideally, we want to grow that to something more substantial than $5. But when it comes to a young person getting started, I always give them the $1 a day challenge, which is to get started with $1 a day. I can find $1 a day in my couch cushion. I can find it in my pockets. I can usually
on the ground.
Yeah, on the ground.
I find money almost every day.
Yes,
on the sidewalk.
On the sidewalk,
yeah.
You name it. So think about where you can find $1 a day. And if it means that instead of having 3 lattes, you have 2, and all of a sudden you have $4 a day, well then that's great. But the $1 a day challenge is a great way to get started. Second piece of that is yes, you get started with your saving, but you also need to get started with managing a budget. And budgets are like the big bad B word for the under 30 crowd. Nobody wants
big bad B word, budget.
Yeah, no one wants to have one because they're
confined,
they're
restrictive,
and they're not actually, they don't need to be. They can actually be quite helpful, and fun can be built into the budget. But budgets are one of the most important tools to getting your financial life in order and also getting started with your savings.
So we're just going to take a quick break, and that means it's my Good to Know Minute. And Lesley, I know you've got a great success tip, so jump right in there.
Certainly in my experience, with the success that I've had with my books, saving, speaking, and my articles, I would say that the most important piece of success is to follow your passion and work hard at it. And your passion is what will carry you through when times are rough, and it will be the piece that builds a ton of momentum when times are really good. And I always say that money and success follow your passion. So stick with it, and it almost always pays off.
Well, that's good to know. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, more with Lesley Scorgie, financial consultant and author of the bestseller Rich by 30 and also Rich by 40. So stay where you are. Welcome back to the show. I'm Shannon Skinner, and I'm speaking with Lesley Scorgie. She's the author of Rich by 30 and also Rich by 40, two very popular books, who's also been on Oprah at the age of 17. Now, let's talk a little bit maybe more specifically about what some of the 3 or 4 things that people can do to save, particularly if you're under 30. I mean, start with $1 a day, but what else can we do that are really practical pieces of advice?
I always believe that we shouldn't be reinventing the wheel when it comes to building our net worth and ultimately our wealth. There are wealthy people that have come before us, self-made millionaires who I have studied for many years, done case studies and research on them, and they have 3 characteristics in common amongst all of them. The first characteristic that they have is that they are very savvy spenders. The second is that...
Savvy spenders?
Yeah, very savvy spenders.
Oh.
The second piece is that they're saving and investing for their future, and the third is that they're giving back to their community. So maybe I'll talk a little bit about each one of those and give some tips around each one. So the first thing that wealthy people do is when they spend, they make sure that they're getting the best price. They negotiate deals, and they make sure that they're not using bad credit or bad debt to afford things that weren't necessarily in their budget. So they're not overspending, they're not using high interest credit cards, they're saving in advance for the things that they want, and they're using a budget. Turns out that wealthy people...
There's that B word again.
I know.
It just bad B word.
Bad B word. It just keeps coming up. But it is cited as one of the most important tools that wealthy households use to ensure that they're managing their spending and not busting their budget every month. They know exactly how much money they have in their bank account, where it's allocated to which categories, and they ensure at the end of the day that they have money left over so that they can pursue their savings. So the next piece is, the next characteristic that wealthy people have in common is that they save and invest for their future. Most people have heard the standard save 10% rule, and it turns out that wealthy people are actually saving 15 to 20% of everything that they make. And you might be wondering, well, how on earth do they come up with 15 or 20% of their gross income?
That's exactly what I was thinking
And
of.
it's a very fair question. The first thing that they do is they make sure that at the top of their budget, their savings comes out before they can spend it on groceries, mortgages, car payments, etc. They're also using tax advantage savings plans like the RRSP, the TFSA, pension plans through work, and they're making sure that if they work for an employer, they're getting their employer to pitch in to their plan, which helps them achieve that next level of savings. They're also making sure that their savings goals are at an appropriate level. So we don't want to set an unrealistic goal for our saving. Hence, when we're getting started, the $1 a day challenge is a great way to get started. But once you're through that, you've done it for a few months, then it's important to pump that up and make sure that we're saving, $5 a day. So that's when I would always recommend that you look very closely at that budget again and see where you can cut back. So a latte here, a muffin there, a drink with a friend here or there.
Because it all adds up.
It adds up.
Really
and if you're wondering, where is all my money going? I can possibly save 10 or 15%. Look hard at that budget to see where you can cut back or cut out things that are unnecessary. So that's where people are able to achieve that 10, 15, and 20% savings level. The third thing that wealthy people have done well and better than the average is they have a plan to give. So they have realized that it is very important to integrate giving into their financial plan and not just plan to give later on down the road. Instead, they're giving in excess of 10% of everything that they make, and they're doing it by planning ahead, taking advantage of tax credits that are available for giving to charities, etc. And they're also giving of not just their money, I like to call it their time, talent, and treasure. So
time, talent, and treasure.
Yeah, it's like the whole package. They're offering their skills, they're offering their time, and they're offering their money. And they're doing it with organizations that they're passionate about. And it turns out that there is an ROI, a return on investment, when you do give. And it comes back in a variety of different ways, through sales promotions, networks, mentorship opportunities, leadership opportunities, and sometimes financial opportunities that weren't necessarily available to them prior to that.
Well, this has been really insightful. I spend a lot of time around filmmakers. And have for many years. And when I was at the Toronto International Film Festival this year, I overheard a number of filmmakers who talk about how they get their projects off the ground, which is, I think, what I'm starting to see also with other entrepreneurs, just generally speaking, is that they pull money from credit cards because they can't get it from anywhere else. Yeah. And so in a lot of cases, there are these young entrepreneurs who are getting their creative projects off the ground, and they're pulling money from credit cards, they're maxing out their credit cards, they're pulling from one, paying the other. What advice do you have for young entrepreneurs that are doing this?
Okay, so first off, I am also one of those young entrepreneurs, but I didn't go down that path. When it came time to needing money for my projects, I know, and you know, that drawing from a credit card or a high interest loan is financially lethal. It is very difficult to get yourself out of a high interest debt situation. It's not impossible, but it's difficult. It's very difficult. So my advice is, again, planning ahead. We know that these creative projects can grow and morph into something different than what we set out initially. Right, and so there certainly needs to be an understanding of that growth. So when we're budgeting, again, comes down to that B word. When we're budgeting, we need to budget in some flexibility for these projects to grow. We need to look for funding from places that there are grants available, and perhaps even friends and family raising capital through those channels. Venture capitalists are around us every day. There's angel investors, and if you've got a really good idea, pitch it. Right. See whether or not you can get some funding for these projects that is low interest and perhaps even tax advantaged, or grant, or some type of bursary that could be given to you.
Now, Lesley, I have really enjoyed this time. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. But certainly I have learned a few things from you, and I'm sure that my audience has as well. So thank you for coming on the show and sharing some of your knowledge and wisdom, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Now, for more information about Lesley Scorgie and more information about this interview, you can visit the website at extraordinarywomentv.com. You'll also on that site find out more information about past guests and upcoming guests, more information about the show, and you can contact me through the website as well. I'm also on Twitter and Facebook. If you follow me on Twitter, I'll follow you back. Well, if these stories if you are interested in I've really blown my intro and I've blown my extras today. If you are interested in transforming your life, I hope these stories have inspired you. You've been watching Extraordinary Women TV. I'm Shannon Skinner. See you soon.